In this video, we're going to be going through all the different cyber attacks that have happened in 2021 right now. Hey everybody, welcome to StudioSec. Thank you for watching. Like this video if it's helpful. Comment down below with your thoughts on all the different attacks this year. It's been a crazy year in cyberspace. And subscribe for more content. I'm posting more every week. 2021 has been insane, like nuts. Like we have seen crazy activity in cyberspace. We've seen some pretty massive cyber attacks, and it can be easy in light of the pandemic, in light of the next cyber attack. It can be easy to forget what exactly has happened. So let's go back, let's just hit the pause button right now, halfway through 2021, and let's look back at the year and kind of get an idea on what craziness has already happened. A quick admin note is that none of this means that we're seeing more cyber attacks now than we have before or anything like that. It's just that some of these are a lot bigger than maybe we've seen coverage on in the past. And the main thing is really just around media coverage. We're seeing some pretty significant media coverage around some of these cyber attacks. Now let's kind of start with SolarWinds. Now SolarWinds really happened in 2020. However, we've seen more information come out on the SolarWinds attack, more fallout. We saw that hackers based in China had taken advantage of the same vulnerability that hackers in Russia took advantage of. And we saw that the scope of the SolarWinds attack was a lot bigger than initially realized. Another massive cyber attack that happened was the Exchange hack. And that was an absolutely massive cyber attack that affected over 100,000 businesses worldwide. And it showed the true effect that automated cyber attacks can have whenever they are just devastating unpatched systems across the world. And then of course, who could possibly remember the Colonial pipelines attack, especially if you live on the US East Coast. I know that I was affected by that. Personally, I don't know if you were too. The Colonial pipeline attack showed that ransomware can absolutely cripple not only critical infrastructure, but it can really put a hindrance on the economy as well. Because, you know, if you can't get gas, what else are you not going to be able to do? So that really illuminated a massive vulnerability that the United States has to grapple with. We have to deal with it. We have to come up with ways to address that. And so that's what the Colonial pipeline attack did. So where did these attacks originate from? Generally, we know that attribution is very hard. It's very hard to pinpoint exactly where one cyber attack or where one adversary is. But we know that SolarWinds is more likely than not of Russian origin, and then was later taken advantage of by members of a Chinese hacker group. And then we know that the Exchange attack was China-based. And then we know that the Colonial pipeline attack comes from a criminal gang in Russia. And so we're kind of seeing a general mix of allegedly state-sponsored cyber groups, but also criminal gangs, both in Russia and China. So especially, now we also want to contextualize what exactly the SolarWinds attack and Colonial attack mean, because they're not necessarily meaning the same thing. So the Exchange and the SolarWinds attack show that attackers can gain insane access to all kinds of different organizations via a supply chain attack. With the Colonial pipeline attack, we see that attackers are realizing that you can gain a lot of money doing a ransomware attack, especially if that ransomware attack is on critical infrastructure. Now, what becomes a problem is whenever these nation states decide that a ransomware attack, when combined with any kind of a kinetic operation, could really become an issue. The two main themes for these attacks is with of course SolarWinds and the Exchange. We see that supply chain attacks can have a devastating effect, and they can gain access for the attacker to all kinds of different targets that might be downstream. And then for the Colonial attack, attackers learn that it's possible to gain all kinds of money by unleashing ransomware on critical infrastructure. These are themes that are going to carry on for a long time. They're going to reverberate in the cybersecurity community for a long time. They should definitely be part of the conversation that you might be having with your leadership, if you aren't already, on how to make sure that you are best preparing your cybersecurity strategy for the future. So we could also zoom out and contextualize this as part of a greater cyber war that's playing out between the United States and potentially Russia and China. Now, it's no real secret that a cyber war may or may not be happening. kind of is. However, it's kind of hard to ascertain whether or not these attacks play into that, especially if like in the Colonial pipeline case, it was executed by a group. Now, Russia is historically known to carry out more sensitive and risky operations by sending some sort of proxy. For instance, if you look at the takeover of Crimea, the soldiers they sent were unmarked. They didn't have any flag patches. They didn't have any kind of identification. It was only until after Crimea had voted to become annexed into Russia that the soldiers were Russian. In Libya and Africa, they tend to deploy mercenaries under the organization known as Wagner. So it may not be a shock if it later were to be revealed that they allow certain hacker gangs to carry out some attacks basically for their interests, to give them some level of plausible deniability. So think of this as potentially, now I'm not saying that this is what's going on, it could potentially be them wetting their feet in more critical attacks. And then of course with SolarWinds and Exchange, we see the attackers originating from both Russia and China. And of course, SolarWinds is used by a number of organizations, not only in the federal government, but in the private sector. And same thing with Exchange. I mean, Exchange is used pretty widely too. So that can gain access to these organizations that they could then pivot and continue to do operations. Now again, all of that's speculation, not saying any of that's actually true. You could just say that that's not true in the comments. Let me know. So with that, that's 2021. Pretty crazy. Now it started pretty hot. Let's see if 2021 slows down, which would be great for those of us that are working in the field, or if it continues to go at a breakneck pace. So with that, like this video if it's helpful, comment down below. We will see you next time.